Hey, we are diving even deeper on one of my recent episodes. My guest, Larry Linne. This is a guy who was instrumental not only in Two Types of People, the project overall, the book, the show, me personally, professionally, a guy that I say it all the time. I say it in your episode, but man, every time I'm with you, I have to say thank you. I have the opportunity to kind of Monday morning quarterback my career at this point because I've been at it for a while now, and to get the education and life experience of being with you day to day for that many years, not only in the office, out on the road, but out on the water in Southwest Florida as well. So this guy, he was the second person. So I told my wife and then told Larry I'm thinking about writing my second book. He was the first person that I interviewed. He's a contributor to the book, a multiple time best-selling author and multiple time author. Holy cow, we're going to get to that in a second. Larry, thanks for coming back on and having a little chat today.
Thrilled to be here, Pat, and I just I'm so excited about your book. This it's going to be a lot more than a book. I think we're going to see stuff on TV. We're going to see a lot of things happen with that thing. It's such a great idea, and I'm still amazed, Pat, that after we've been working on this thing for a couple of years now, and every time I mention the two types of people. I always ask people what they think is the two types of people. And to this date, I still haven't heard anybody say the same thing. So it's amazing how much people's brains go into that two different types of people. So it's going to be great, man. I'm excited about it and I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's it's really just an interesting way to highlight people's experience, their strength, their hope, what they've been through, and maybe some of the things that make them a little wacky and unique. So yeah, it's been great. And today the way that we titled you as your chapter title is Elite Business Consultant, former NFL player. Today, I want to really focus on you as an author. Again, for you to be part of Brand Aid, certainly the first person that I called about it, first person I asked to be in it. And we had no idea where this thing was going to go. And sitting here today, it's pretty incredible. But I want to look back at your journey as an author because mine was pretty simple. Larry called me and said, "Hey, you want to write a book with me? We've been teaching this stuff for a while." And I said, "Sure." Had no idea what we were getting into, but there we are. Brand Aid came out
Yeah.
2014, Larry. We had a few different iterations. I got my whole stack of Larry Linne books here, Brand Aid, Brand Damage, all the good stuff. So I wanted to start with, because I remember we were in Fort Myers Beach. I'd come down, we were there for some business planning, and I remember looking at the transcript of your very first book. I don't have this fancy gold copy. I've got one of the original ones here, but Make the Noise Go Away. I remember looking at that transcript and you're telling me about the journey, multiple years of writing it, and I'm reading through some of the intro stuff. So I wanted to start because I don't know if I actually know the answer to this question, but what got you into being an author and writing books in the first place?
Yeah, I had such a unique experience of I was on a path at a corporation writer to become a top executive in the corporation, and I realized that corporate life was not for me. And though I was moving up incredibly fast and just accelerating, I finally realized I needed to be more in the entrepreneurial world. And so when I jumped over to the entrepreneurial side and I went to work at a heavy construction equipment place in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I became the second in command. And as a second in command, we had tremendous success. We turned an organization that was a good company with a really good leader, but he just wasn't able to be the best of version of himself because he was so just drugged down into the business and the noise was too much. And so as a second in command to him, we just started knocking it out of the park. We had great growth in the company. His life became different. He became somebody that could spend time with his kids and his wife and his family and travel. And so that whole experience, all of a sudden, other people started saying, "Hey, can we have Larry?" And of course, they couldn't have me, but they wanted to learn from me. So I started teaching the concepts of how to be an effective second in command. And as I teach it, I continue to learn, and so it was teach, learn, teach, learn, teach, learn. Before you know it, I was running classes of 10 people, multiple classes of 10 at a time, taking them through 10 months of training on how to be an effective second command. And finally, the demand just got so big. People said, Larry, you've got to write a book. And, I'm the guy that, what's the old A students teach B students how to work for C students? Well, I was the C student, and my teachers and my wife, who's a brilliant writer, all the people around me are like, you should write a book, but you really shouldn't because you can't write. And so I tried to get other people to help me write the book. I got some different co-author attempts that failed. And I went through this whole journey of a couple of years, almost 2 full years of trying to write the book. And I loved Patrick Lencioni. I loved the parable style. But I just didn't have that's a real tough technical writing skill to do that. And I just couldn't get there. And I kept trying to get other people to help me. It wasn't going anywhere. And finally, Ken Kohler, who's my co-author on the book, he worked with me for over a year trying to help write that book. And I just was never satisfied with what he was doing. Now, don't get me wrong, he was awesome, but he's a true technical writer. And I wanted it to be more of a narrative. And so he kept just going and going and going. And finally, one day he chewed me out and said, Larry, you're never going to write a book. It's your baby. You care too much, and you just will never be satisfied. It made me so mad. And he was harsh and aggressive with me. And I thank God for that. So that night I went home and ate dinner. And at about 7 o'clock at night, I sat down in my office. And between 7 o'clock at night and about 4:30 the next morning, I wrote Make the Noise Go Away. And it was terrible. It was absolutely horrendous. It was so bad because I didn't know how to put all the grammar to be able to have a conversation and all that. I didn't do it well. But I wrote it, and it was legible enough that people could read it. So I got an editor to go in and clean it up and make it something that people could actually read. And I started sending it out to people, and had the wonderful opportunity of a great friend, Larry Gilroy. Larry Gilroy was at a golf tournament, and he saw Ken Blanchard, the #1 author of all time, 1 Minute Manager, #1 author of business books. And he said, Ken, I got a really cool book you should read. And of course, Ken rolls his eyes like, yeah, sure, everybody does. But he sent it to him, and he told me he did it. And then all of a sudden, a month later, I get a phone call, and the phone call was from Ken Blanchard. And I pick up the phone, and I said, hi, this is Larry. And he said, hi, Larry, this is Ken Blanchard. And I said, yeah, sure it is. And I started laughing. I said, who is this? And he goes, no, I'm serious. This is Ken Blanchard. I got your phone number from Larry Gilroy. And I just want to let you know, I read your manuscript. And he said, this book is a book that every business person in the world should read. Larry, this is one of the best books I've seen. I've already made my entire staff read it, and I will make sure every staff member I ever have will read this book in the future. And he said, Larry, it's so good. What can I do for you? And immediately came to my mind. I said, you can write the foreword, and I can put your name on the front cover. And he said, I'd be happy to do that. And that became the beginning for me. And I'll also tell you that I have a lot of other books that we'll talk about, I'm sure. And the reason I have a lot of other books, but they always have other people's names on it, is because Ken that day framed my future. And he said, Larry, somebody helped me write my first book, and I will be happy to help you and anybody else. I give back so that other people can become authors. And I said, you know what, I'm going to pay that forward. And so every book I've written, I've brought somebody in and said, I want you to be a part of my book, and let's write it together. And whether they write a chapter or multiple chapters, or they do editing or cleanup, you'll hardly ever see, or you'll not see my name on a book alone, because I want to share it with others because of what I learned from Ken Blanchard.
So I need to give Ken Kohler some props here, because what he did for you, you did for me, and it changed my life for sure. Wow, that's a great story, Larry. Thank you. So
Yeah.
I want to dig just a little bit into Make the Noise Go Away. I know it's an older one, but man, talk about an oldie but a goodie. You mentioned the noise. So let's talk a little bit about that noise, because I think on the surface, people can go, okay, yeah, it gets noisy in my business. But what are you really talking about when it comes to being an executive, a CEO, a business owner, the noise that they're facing on a day-to-day?
Yeah, the world has continued to become more complex constantly since I've been in the world of business. It's just accelerated with technology, and now AI, and just every form of technology has just made the world more noisier and noisier, because we get more information today than we did yesterday, than the day before. It's now at a place where, between vendors and suppliers and the market and politics and the economy and employees and team members and the clients that we have out there, our product vendors, and all of the things that happen in a business owner's life. And a business owner or an executive has an ultimate consequence. The outcome is theirs. And so they have to keep involved and aware of all that's going on. And what I learned as a second in command is that highest and best use of time and talent is where companies thrive. Is if everybody's doing what they do best, companies thrive. And it starts with the top executive. If they're doing what they do best, that allows the next level of people, that allows the next level of people to always be able to do what they do best. And that's been my mission in my career, is helping people get inside of their highest and best use of their time and talent. And I realized in this first and second command relationship, in all the years I've been teaching it, first in commands can't fix it because they have to go, do, and know and understand and run the business. It takes a second command that has the ability to take things away from the first in command. It's a second command is looking after a first in command. And by the way, all people that work for the first in command they're all second commands. And as they look at the first in command, their job is to keep them focused on what they do best, by taking things away, handing it around, managing it, organizing it, and then that also cascades to the next level of the organization. And if everybody is taking away things that somebody shouldn't be doing because it's noisy, it's busy, it's overwhelming, they're staying up at night, they're thinking about these things. But if all of a sudden somebody comes in and says, I got that, I got that, I got that, and I'm going to communicate to you and keep you informed, all of a sudden that first in command can get focused on what they do best. And then that second command can focus on what they do best. And in this book, it's not just one or two concepts. I mean, we have a couple of dozen concepts that are all things that just kind of break the mold of what you learned in business school. Things that you think are the right things to do, but the reality is it's the opposite. Like delegation doesn't work. Taking things away, it does, because of who owns it at the end of the day. Those are the kinds of concepts that we teach in the book. And Patrick, we're blessed. I mean, this thing has sold over 70,000 copies, and I've never advertised it. This will be my first advertisement of the book. It's all word.
We're finally here.
Yeah, all word of mouth. People like the book so much, they tell everybody else. I have a couple of large speaking engagements coming in the future. And it's just because somebody picked up the book and shared it with somebody else, and I get a phone call. So it's an amazing, successful book, and I'm blessed that Ken Blanchard, Ken Kohler, others around the world have shared it with different people, and it's been a real blessing. And a 97-page parable-style book, all the executives love to read it.
Read it on an airplane.
You got it.
Larry, one of the things, as you were talking there are two things that came to mind. Number one is, I've worked with a lot of authors, best-selling authors, we call them our blue chip clients, those celebrity types. And what I've found is a lot of them have amazing concepts, but a lot of them are very hard to implement. And they can't do it themselves. I worked with you directly for 6 years, 5.5 years, something like that. We not only taught this and saw how it worked within an agency, within a business, but I saw you do it on both sides. I've seen you play both roles, and the power of this is truly there. So I want to give you, some props on that, because there's great ideas, but to put them in practice, like you said, as a business owner, I read a lot, but to actually apply some of these things, it's very, very hard because of the complexity today. So speaking of that, I have a concept I want to get your take on. So Guffey Wright, a featurette that we had on, a special guest as support of your episode on Two Types. He was talking about basically the 80-20 rule and how that no longer applies to talent. He said that, it used to be 20% of your sales force is going to produce 80% of the results. He said now it's probably the top 5% because of technology and all the changes in the world. So when you look at the results that someone can get, and you look at, the highest and best use, is it still kind of that 80-20, or are you leaning more toward what Guffey was saying of, and if you could spend 95% of your time in highest and best use, that's really where the sweet spot is?
Pat, I know you did this just because you wanted to get me back to the two types of people, but I'm just kidding. But it is. I mean, that's my message in the two types of people. For those that watch, That there's the people that want to or think about and talk about doing things, and there's people that do it. And I would say the gap is widening. It's getting broader than it used to be. I'm looking at all the artificial intelligence stuff going on. I just wrote a white paper and sent it out to all my clients the other day that the problem is people are playing with artificial intelligence. They're toying around with it. They're building stuff. They're developing stuff. They're creating agents. They're creating things. And there's just so much noise around all this stuff. But at the end of the day, very few people will truly implement to a level where it is institutionalized, it's executed, all their people will perform. I've gone to numerous insurance agencies out there recently, and I hear everybody talking about AI, but I only see, less than 5% of the people actually doing something that's meaningful that brings value. And it's because the inability to implement, the inability to execute. And that discipline, the discipline to execute and to do it with speed, that's who's gonna differentiate. Those are the companies and the people that are gonna accelerate through this environment. And everybody's gonna hear those stories and think, oh, I gotta go do that because that's what everybody's doing. They're not. It's a few people. A few people are doing it, and they're gonna do it really well, and they're gonna separate themselves. And the rest are gonna flounder around, and they're gonna play, and they're gonna be excited about things. One of the things that I heard earlier, mid-career, that I thought was pretty powerful is that partial success is a sedative. And what happens is when people start something and they get it to a MVP, minimum value, or they get to a place where they like what they have, they get so excited about it, it becomes a sedative, and it relaxes them and it slows them down. And then they lose interest in it, and they don't keep the project going, and they don't go train people, and they don't go execute, and they don't go monitor. I mean, I had somebody the other day tell me they were late for a meeting with me because they were teeing up a meeting with their staff on a software product that they've owned for 5 years, but nobody's logged in for 2. There you go. So I don't know if it's 90-10, 95-5. I don't know. But what I'll tell you is the world keeps separating those that actually deliver and execute. It's getting smaller and smaller. And a lot of people are really good at playing stuff. You go.
Well, as a human, and I'm not going to spoil all the candy here in the lobby. You got to watch the episode and read the book when it comes out this August. Larry has done some very extreme things, some very tough things, had some major setbacks with a major bike accident, came back from that. He was in a halo, broke his dang neck, came back, still got the wounds to show up, but chicks dig the scars, as we know. And I mean Deb. Um, you've done a lot of hard things, and I know in the book you talk about choosing to do the hard thing, and people saying, "Boy, Larry, I wish I could be you." You say, "No, you don't. You don't want to do what I do." And so I want to frame that for this conversation as being an author, because I know there's stats out there, and basically the point is there's a very large percent of the U.S. population that wants to write a book. Even smaller actually starts, and even more finish, and then blah blah blah. So, what were some of the things that maybe not surprised you, but things that you remember from the early days with Make the Noise Go Away that I don't think people understand being an author? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. I think there's this broad image that being an author means you got to go get a standard publisher, big publisher that's going to come and do the work for you. And this is a great lesson for me and for my wife. Again, my wife may be one of the best writers I've ever been around. I love watching her write. She's taught our children to write brilliantly. I'm the only one in the family that's not a great writer. But what I learned is that great writing does not make for great success in getting published and having books out there that are being sold. It's really multiple skill sets. One skill set is the ability to write. Another skill set is the ability to create content and the ideas and the emotional intelligence around what people would be interested in, what they care about. And then the third thing is the ability to sell and to sell a book. And I think I was told by one of the publishers that the average author that self-publishes sells less than 300 books. And that's because they've got great books. And I bet some of those books could have been global bestsellers, but nobody knows about them because they don't know how to sell. And so those three different skills, and if anybody wants to be an author, I would tell you, make sure that all three skills are being executed by yourself or somebody else. If you can't sell, get somebody that can sell for you. If you can't write, get somebody to write for you. And that's what I've done. I have incredible content. I've been blessed in my career with the ability to think about problems, see problems, solve problems, put together content that's meaningful for people. I have over 600 pieces of intellectual property at Insight Performance Group. I have thousands of ideas still waiting to be done. I've got books that I write, and I get tremendous feedback on the content. So content is not my weakness, and selling is not my weakness. I can sell all day long. I can get people to buy books, but I'm not a great writer. So I use editors, use AI, I use other tools to help support that piece. And that was the greatest lesson I learned. I always thought books are written and published and successful because of great writing. And yes, there's some great writers that have done that, but it's not the skill that gets you to the marketplace. The skill that gets you to the marketplace is the ability to sell what you've got. And if you work with a great publisher, they can do that if they love your book and they're committed to it. But Pat, even you and I found we've had a publisher buy Brand Aid, and after they bought it, we couldn't get a phone call returned. They did nothing after that, and we were expected to go sell our book. So that's the reason I continue to go the self-publishing route for myself. And it's not for everybody, but it works for me because I can sell. So that's probably the biggest thing I learned, Pat, in going through this process.
Yeah, and you hit on so many good points there. For anyone that's looking at it, those are 100% accurate tips and experience from Larry. And it really does depend on what your ultimate goal is. I'm very blessed to have Baker Publishing, Revell behind me. They are doing an incredible job. I've told you multiple times what they're doing already, and we're still a few months out. So, but yeah, everyone wants to look at the New York Times bestseller and say, well, that's it. Well, that's a very hard road. And so I think people need to be very, very direct and clear on what they want to get accomplished with a book. And it doesn't have to be a bestseller for it to be extremely beneficial for you, valuable for your readers and all that. So let me ask you this. As I think through those, I think there's a fourth one, and I'll call it determination, because you said multiple years of trying to get yours done. Two types, it will be 4 years almost to the day of picking this thing up, thinking it was dead, coming back to life, all that good stuff. So how many books have you published? How many times have you gone through this process?
I brought these today just to have them here. So I've got a lot. And it's interesting, each one of these are four of the main ones here: Make the Noise Go Away, Keeping It Light, Leading Performance Because It Can't Be Managed, and Brand Aid, which you and I did together. And it's interesting because this was a 2 to 3, probably 4 years total journey. Keeping It Light was a 2-year journey. Brand Aid, I think we spent over a year working our way through that to get to a final place. But here's the interesting one: Leading Performance. During COVID, people were struggling. How do we manage people from home? How do we deal with the things that are going on out there in the world? I wrote that in 60 days and had it published within 90 days of starting. So it's determination, it's focus, it's commitment to a project. And that's what it is. It's ultimately a project, and you have to project manage it. You have to manage it from start to finish. And then, I have all these other books too. I mean, I've been I wrote a chapter in I Am, The Untold Story of Success, brilliant book by Clint Ellsbury. Our Evolution by Tim Lehman. He was on the show, and great book. Resigned to Success with Scott White. So I've been a part of a lot of books, but every one of them, I would tell you, it's about the discipline of managing the project. What has to happen, lay it out, organize it, put dates, put times, and get it done. And then find the right strategy for you, for a publisher, and then go and just be relentless. Be absolutely relentless. That's the key. So you're right, Pat. There was a fourth.
Just sticking it out, baby. All right. So you showed all the books, all but one I think we've got in that stack. I've got my stack here.
Yep.
what I love is, like you said, you give people the opportunity to come in with you, share their stories, and you put, your Larry Lenny humor, your heart into it. And you've done these collaborations with guys like our friend Scott White, Tim Lehman, and then most recently with David Pattison. And to be able to share these kind of experiences with these guys, I mean, talk about, having their name on a book with you, with these friends, guys that you've really spent a lot of time with, getting deep on the consulting world with them.
Yeah, it's special. And I love seeing other people's materials, other people's ideas come out in a book, and to see their face when they get that first book. And it reminds me of my first one with Make the Noise Go Away. But it's a passion for me to be able to help accelerate other people's careers, however I can do that. And if it's through coaching and consulting and advising, if it's problem solving, if it's fixing something for them, or if it's helping them get their story on paper. And in most of those, that's what's happened is I've said, look, your story is worth being told. And I've encouraged and guided them down a path to write these books. And, it that's the reward to me is, I don't make money on books very often. I make quite a bit on Make the Noise Go Away, but I don't make books on money on books, but I get a lot of satisfaction by watching people have success and memorializing really good content, memorializing really good thoughts that have helped people. And that's my career now. I don't go very many weeks ever without somebody going, I read your book. Oh my gosh, it changed my life. I read your book. It changed what I was doing. I just got an email 2 days ago that someone said, hey, I just read Keeping It Light, and a couple of the chapters are going to completely refocus the way I do business, and it's going to help me so much. Man, when you hear that that's happening out there and I'm not even having to do the work, that's so rewarding. It's an incredible place to be in my life. And if I was 16 years old sitting around and somebody said, what do you want to do for a living? If I knew what I knew today, the answer would be exactly what's going on. People saying you're making a difference in my life, and I'm thankful for it. Man, what better thing can you accomplish, in a lifetime than knowing that maybe thousands and tens of thousands of people have out there said, I'm a better person, I'm a better father, mother, parent, boss, supervisor, coworker, because of something Larry Linne did. It's pretty meaningful.
And you're right. I mean, with every book that you've ever put out, I've obviously heard the stories directly from people, seen the emails. Sean French and I talk about it all the time. And we had almost 9 million downloads in 2025. We get almost daily messages from people saying, you saved my life, my marriage, whatever it is. And that's very flippant to say it that way. But it's exactly that. I look at a professional baseball player growing up, and if I knew what I know now, I think I would have chosen this still, because I'm having a great time. And to be able to memorialize people's stories like Bob Springer, who's Top Gun grad, Marine aviator, went to space twice, and this was his first podcast. He's never been in a book. So to tell his story, to share that with his family, it's a pretty special place. So I don't take it lightly. So let's talk a little bit about one last story. You mentioned keeping it light. So you share stories, but you also share isms that inspire, motivate, build culture, and make tough decisions a breeze. So let's start with, what the heck is an ism for those who don't know what it is?
Well, so I met David Pattison, and David and I sat for multiple hours at a hotel bar before an event that was in this company. And I sat and listened to him. Just every topic that came up, he had a theme and an idea of what that is. And he'd say, it's like this, it's like watermelon seed management, or it's like this. And he just had a title and a label for every business concept that you could bring up. And then what I learned is all of the young leaders of their organization were all using his terminology constantly. And they called him David, or Pattisonisms. And these isms are just the things that he's labeled of the themes that you can capture and learn. And it helps you learn management principles and leadership principles faster. And so I heard him do that, and I said, look, man, you really should have that in print. And he agreed. And so we ended up with 42 chapters, 42 isms. I think he has about 150 of them. I stole the best 42 and said, look, we're just going to start with that. Maybe we'll write a second book in the future. But we wrote, I interviewed him for over a year. And then we determined that I had a lot of value from my experiences that I could add to his isms. So his concept, what he teaches, and then I could bring it to life with a lot of where my world has been. And I think the combination we both found to be just a wonderful, wonderful book. And it's 42 chapters that stand alone. So it's fun. You can kind of read it almost like a Bible study. Just read one thing each day and it stands alone as its own concept. But I got to tell you, young people, new people in leadership and management, it's a must read. I mean, it is a lot of brilliance from David Pattison that everybody should have and know. And then senior people, I've read it. I think I've read it 6 times now. After I've got it published, I've read it 6 more times because I keep going back to these chapters and going, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Oh, forgot about that. You know, just the other day, I was dealing with a big issue with somebody and trying to figure out how to exit a relationship. And it took me back to the chapter that talks about paving your enemies a path of gold to retreat. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. That's the avenue. So it's a great reference book. It's one that I promise you, everybody that's read it, they say they're marking it up like crazy. They've got pages turned, they've clicked it, they've highlighted, they've gone to the front and said, these are the chapters I have to keep rereading. So it's just fun. It's a fun book, and it's a high impact with easy read.
I know one of the chapters is 2 types of people.
That's correct.
I'm not going to give David's answer away. You got to get the book and find that out.
Gotta get the book.
Obviously, he's a smart man if he's using that in his daily repertoire of isms. So
Yeah.
you mentioned a few. Is there another one that you didn't mention that was your favorite one of all of them?
As far as the books or chapters in the book?
I'm sorry, of the chapters in Keeping It Light.
You know what? I think we have 2 or 3 chapters that have similar themes, and that is doing the hard things. And you know that in life, to be successful, you can't just take easy paths all the way through life. You've got to look for the hard. Go find the hardest thing, because the path to what's difficult, or the path to greatness, has difficult in between it. Otherwise, everybody'd be there and it wouldn't be that great. So I love that. I think we've got 3 different chapters in the book where we speak specifically about things related to go through tough times. Don't be afraid of them. Seek those tough times. Seek the hardest path, because the joy that comes from the other side is just remarkable. So I think that's my favorite theme element of the book. And a lot of people have said, gosh, it seems like that keeps coming up throughout. So I don't even think it's just the 3 chapters. I think it readdresses itself numerous times.
Well, thank you for coming on. Again, everyone that is in leadership, in business, looking to get in business, if you want one of the most brilliant, complex minds that can take complex ideas and make them very, very simple. And trust me, I know, because he has simplified my life in many, many ways. You can find Larry on LinkedIn, Larry G. Linne out there. You can go to the III online. So the II online, Intellectual Innovations, to find all of his books, his classes, his tools. He's got all kinds of stuff, even more coming, I'm sure. Larry, thank you again for coming on. Thank you for being a part of really everything, but especially 2 types. Congrats on keeping it light, you and David, on the recent one. Can't wait for the next one, whatever that is. And
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And Insight Performance Group as well. That's CEO there, and for the insurance agencies across the country, we're out there helping them as well with this. So yeah, all of those pieces together make. I have a lot of complexity, but I don't have a lot of noise because I got a lot of great second commands. So thanks, Patrick. Appreciate you having me on. Buddy.
Do everything you can, and yeah, of course, to all my friends at Insight Performance Group, of course, insightpg.com. You can go out there. Anyone that is in the insurance world, especially insurance agency owner, in the independent world, the company world, go check these guys out. I know from experience, I was there for many, many years, and I'm sure it's much better and bigger. And so, Larry, thank you. Always a pleasure. Repeat guest here on 2 Types, and hope to have you back again sometime when the next book comes out.
Anytime, baby. Bring me back.
Thanks.